He would begin by renewing his battle with the trusts. The dull, purblind folly of the rich, their greed and arrogance and corruption have produced a very unhealthy condition, Roosevelt wrote. And his impatience mirrored the mood of the country. Many Americans were demanding an end to the unfettered powers of big business. Farmers wanted relief from railroads charging high prices. Consumers wanted protection from rancid, disease-ridden meat. And from patent medicine companies selling drugs laced with narcotics and alcohol. A crusading press exposed corporate greed and corruption that outraged ordinary Americans. They looked to the federal government for help. The president was outraged too. He charged those he called malefactors of great wealth with arrogantly ignoring the public welfare, and he proposed a series of laws to regulate industry. But to get those laws through Congress, he would have to fight the members of his own party.
The Republican Party was divided essentially into two factions. One, and by far the strongest, was the conservative faction. The other was a progressive faction. To get something through the Congress, there had to be some bending on both sides, and Roosevelt, as president, was the man who tried to persuade each group to bend.
To Republican conservatives opposed to any federal regulation of industry, Roosevelt was the enemy. "We bought the son of a bitch," complained a large business contributor to his presidential campaign, "and then he didn't stay bought." As cartoonists mythologized him, the president outmaneuvered the conservative congressman and won new laws to protect consumers. Nothing like it had ever been tried before. To protect farmers from railroads charging excessive rates, he called for strengthening the Interstate Commerce Commission. To protect consumers from filthy conditions in stockyards and food processing plants, he championed federal meat inspection. And he moved to ensure the purity and safety of drugs, medicine, and food with the Pure Food and Drug Act. While Roosevelt battled Republican conservatives, he grew impatient with Republican progressives when they refused to compromise. He was willing to weaken reform bills in order to ensure their passage through Congress. His public moralizing was matched by shrewd political realism. "I believe in men who take the next step," he wrote, "not those who theorize about the 200th step." Roosevelt was wary of reformers, especially the crusading journalists who had fueled the country's fever for change. He belittled them as muckrakers, adding a phrase to the political lexicon.
When Theodore Roosevelt uses the term muckrake, it is a very pejorative term he's using. What he's saying is that these people who are exposing these various ills, they're being too negative, they're exciting the public.
He thought that the reporters who were doing this work were only interested in uncovering evil and depravity and corruption and graft, and that they weren't interested in saying anything of what was good about America. He thought that it was actually a very potent force for evil, this stirring up of hysterical, anti-government, anti-American feeling.
He thinks that the proper kind of reform is the kind that is led by people like himself, by educated people with a larger vision, that they know what's right, that they won't go too far, they won't be irresponsible. He believes that he ought to be controlling the reform very carefully himself.
Roosevelt presented himself as the reasonable alternative to the radicals. Constructive change offers the best method of avoiding destructive change, he argued. Reform is the antidote to revolution.